first, let's kick it off with the Celtics and the Pacers. And game one literally just ended. I was going to try to be impartial and unbiased. I can't. If you listened to this before, you know I'm a Celtics fan. The game just ended, and we won in overtime. How am I supposed to sit here and be calm? I just watched my team win in overtime. My blood pressure is sky high. My heart is in my ass cheeks right now. And I'm supposed to sit here and try to give y'all calm, unbiased analysis. I can't lie to y'all like that. Let's be honest. 36 points from Jason Tatum. Couple boneheaded plays, but we'll excuse it. We won the game. Who cares? Jaylen Brown with the clutchest corner three of his career thus far that I still don't know how he made. I'm sitting there in this very spot yelling, no, 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 yes, as it goes in. But you got to tip your hat to the Pacers, man. That team will not die. They just, every time the Celtics went on a run, other matchups when I'm used to seeing those runs lead to, all right, we're going to go about 20, 30, end of the quarter. This is going to be over. We're going to put the scrubs in and I can start getting ready to record this podcast. No, that's not how it worked out. We build. The Celtics stop moving the ball again. And then the Pacers start shooting the lights out like they've been doing. In a weird way, it kind of felt like watching a bizarro version of the Celtics, especially when the Celtics play defense that poorly. No offense, Pacers. Y'all know y'all aren't the 2004 Pistons when it comes to defense, right? I don't have to, There's about 10 to 15 minute stretches of real time where I'm watching this Pacers team like, oh my God, they can't miss. And they're running like a mile a second. How does anybody stop this team? What is going on here? Followed by 3 straight of the most boneheaded basketball plays I've ever seen in my life, like Tyrese Halliburton blowing out a tire in overtime and turning over the ball over somehow. I still don't know how he did it, but I'll take it. And as I'm watching, I feel like Leonardo DiCaprio in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I'm like, hey, I recognize that. I've seen that before. Unfortunately, since the game just ended, a lot of my advanced analytics I like to go to make myself sound smarter and to make y'all smarter at the end of these games are not yet available. So we got to go with the regular old counter stats. From 3, the Celtics were 33%, 15 for 45. And what made me hopeful about today's game is that the Celtics didn't shoot the lights off from 3. We're still able to put up 133 points and win the game. Again, the Pacers are not the greatest defensive team in the world, but still signs of life, still signs of hope. Happy to see it. The plus side for the Pacers, though, you had 7 players get into double digits, 3 scoring 20 in Pascal Siakam, Miles Turner, and Tyrese Halliburton. This might be the best Miles Turner game I've ever seen in my life. The Celtics just had no answer for him at all. Maybe Kristaps, if he decides he wants to play again, will end up being the answer because clearly the answer was not on the floor. But then you go over to the Celtics side of the ball. This is going to be a very Celtics-centric part of the podcast. Don't worry. We're going to get to all the notes I did to actually preview this series in about 2 minutes. But just first, break down this game. 36 for Tatum, 28 for Jrue Holiday, 26 for Jaylen Brown. Just lovely all over the place. Only 8 for Peyton Pritchard compared to the 13 for TJ McConnell. I'll be honest, I thought they both had a lot more because the amount of white-on-white crime that was going on during this game when both of them were going at each other reminded me of that Larry Bird clip where he looked at Charles Barkley and was like, I take it as disrespect when y'all put a white boy on me. It's disrespectful to my skills. Both of them felt that way whenever they saw each other. Dear God. All right, to summarize today's game, great game about it. Great game for both sides. The Pacers showed me a lot. I expect the Celtics to shoot better from 3 throughout the series and play better defense. Where the Pacers offense shines because of the pace they play with, no pun intended, is it requires a level of focus, discipline, and detail that the Celtics have not shown they are able to keep for 2 games in a row. They were barely able to keep for 2 possessions in a row in this game, which is how those runs kept starting. So if there's an argument for this series being prolonged and ended up being a 7-game series instead of a 4 or 5-game series, that would be it. The argument for it to end up being a 4 or 5-game series would be that may have been the Pacers' best shot and they lost in overtime because they kind of self-destructed. This is a younger team and it's their first time in the conference finals. So we'll see on Thursday how that ends up turning out. All right, so now for all the notes that I had before the game started. Everything the Pacers want to do, the Celtics can do better. I still stand on that. The Pacers want to play fast on offense. Although they have a higher pace on offense, what bogs that down and makes it different is the Celtics play better when they're playing faster. When the Celtics slow down and turn it into the iso ball hours where the Celtics start to get in trouble, as you guys saw today. Pretty much everything in the half court that isn't Kristaps Porzingis posing somebody up usually ends up in a poor shot for the Celtics. And I thought this was going to be the game plan for the Celtics coming in, and I'm happy to see it bear fruit. Joe Mazzulla's game plan offensively clearly is we're attacking Tyrese Halliburton and Aaron Nembhard all series long. So they better channel their inner Ron Artest if they want to win this series. The Pacers' advantages are they have a coaching advantage very clearly with Rick Carlisle over Joe Mazzulla. Joe Mazzulla being the youngest coach in the league, Rick Carlisle obviously having a championship with the Mavericks in 2011, winning that championship over LeBron. Been in the league forever, is a former Celtic himself on those 80 Celtics. So he's been around the block a couple times and then some. Because every adjustment Joe Mazzulla made, whether it was switching to a zone somewhere in the second or third quarter, it just seemed like Rick Carlisle had a counterpunch every couple minutes. And if not for a lot of really costly Pacers turnovers, I don't know how that would have turned out for the Celtics because Rick Carlisle seemed to have an answer for everything. I brought up Porzingis earlier. They said Porzingis is going to miss the first 2 games of the series. I've been watching basketball for a while now. Usually first 2 games turns into game 4, game 5. In my opinion, if Porzingis ends up in the starting lineup before this series is over, that means the Celtics have gone horribly wrong somewhere. So with that, we will see how the rest of this series go. And now from our high-speed chase, we're going to go on over to the rock fight. We're going to talk about the Dallas Mavericks versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I am looking forward to a series I can watch without my heart beating out of his chest every 3 seconds. One of the first things I saw when I was taking my notes for this matchup was I don't think the Dallas Mavericks have an answer for Karl Anthony Towns. Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington and Derek Lively looked pretty good against Chet Holmgren and insert nameless big that OKC had before. But if you remember early in that Clippers series, Zubac was kind of having his way with everybody. Karl Anthony Towns can do everything Zubac can in the paint and then some. Arguably outside of Jokic and Embiid, the best offensive big that we have in the league. The problem is the Timberwolves have a person who can stop Karl Anthony Towns, and that's Karl Anthony Towns, because he is prone to do some boneheaded things from time to time. So if the answer is going to be Karl Anthony Towns, we need you to give us 25 and 12 for an entire series, that gets rough. Although I will give him credit for the 23 points and I believe it was 12 rebounds for Game 7 against the Nuggets in an incredible win by the Timberwolves that nobody, including myself, saw coming. So hats off to them. Speaking of that Game 7, one of the things I thought was really interesting that I'm sure Jason Kidd and the Mavericks coaching staff picked up on was the Nuggets game plan really against Anthony Edwards was, bro, we're doubling you every time you come down the court and we're making you give this ball up. Whether you want to or not, you're giving up the ball. And he did every time. And Anthony Edwards has yet to activate the Curtis Blow give and go gene, the Reggie Miller, the Steph Curry, the, hey, if I pass off the double team, I should probably cut. I should probably curl. I should do anything other than take myself out the play. Granted, he's 22, so at some point he'll learn it. But if Dallas opens up the game plan that way, I would hope Chris Finch or whoever on the coaching staff will pull Ant aside and be like, yo, I hope you know at some point if you give the ball up and go after that double team, you might have an open lane to the basket because they're no longer going to be looking at you. Because who on the Dallas Mavericks will be able to take Ant one-on-one defensively? Derrick Jones Jr., Luka Dončić, Kyrie Irving? But the funny part is the Mavericks aren't even a bad defensive team per se. They were highest in defensive rating in the league for the last 20 games. The counterpoint is the Minnesota Timberwolves were the #1 defensive rating all season long. And as we saw during that Nuggets series, when the Minnesota defense is clicking and firing on all cylinders, it's like something we just don't see in today's NBA. Everything short of the ref blowing the whistle, they'll do. They are a physical team and a pack of African wild dogs. For y'all that don't watch National Geographic, the African wild dog is the most per number effective pack of hunters in the wild. They're like the San Antonio Spurs of hunting. Just teamwork, hunt the animal down. They got formations. They got plays. Do yourself a favor. Watch something of the African wild dogs. Put it into Google. You'll know what I'm talking about. So both of these defense are good, bordering on great. but the Timberwolves are imposing on defense. And there's no joker on the Mavericks for Rudy Gobert to have to focus on and really have to play that defense in the post against. So Rudy Gobert can do what he does best, roam in the paint and mind everybody else's business, and that's where he gets dangerous. And if that's what the Mavericks have to deal with for an entire series, it might just be Goodnight Irene in the paint. Everything outside of Kyrie Irving just making circus layups all series long. Counterpoint if you're the Mavericks. I would like to run y'all back in the clock 4 years ago. The last series Rudy Gobert played as a member of the Utah Jazz. Do we remember who it was against? The Dallas Mavericks, where Jalen Brunson and Luka Dončić got Rudy Gobert up on switches and made him dance all series long. Every time on the perimeter, it was either he stayed in drop coverage and they were bombing threes and mid-range jumpers all game long, or he came out and tried to blitz him and he got left in the dust. Assist to big man straight to the rack for Brunson or Luka Dončić. I would hope Rudy has learned something in the 2 years since that series that ultimately got him traded. My last key to the series for the Mavericks is Luka Dončić going to have 2 healthy knees? Because he hasn't looked like Luka really this entire playoff run. I can't pinpoint the exact game versus the Clippers where his knee looked hampered. I want to say it was game 1, but he's looked about 75 to 80% Luka Dončić all playoffs long. And if you remember coming into this playoff season, he was second all time in points per game in the playoffs behind Michael Jordan. So he's not just a good playoff performer. He's a all-time historically great playoff performer. So if we get that version of Luka Dončić from the Mavericks, I don't know if the Timberwolves are going to have an answer for that. As much as I love that defense, only but so much you could do if you're going against an all-time great on the other side of the ball. But if Luka's hampered to that 75-80%, he's no longer the best player in the series. Anthony Edwards is. Unless, I know I keep going back and forth and hedging. I promise I'll come to a final decision. Unless Kyrie Irving finally decides, you know what, Luka, just go ahead and give me the car keys, my guy. Just put them in my pocket. I got it. You go over there. I know that's not what you do, Mr. Super High Usage Rate. You go over there. I got this. Let me go create as many buckets for us as we see fit. Especially if this game gets really bogged down like I think it will, and it's a lot of half-court offense versus half-court defense. Scoring against that Timberwolves half-court is super difficult, and they don't have a Jokic, like I said earlier, who'll be able to create plays off the dribble and hit slashers and cutters to create easy baskets. Their way of creating easy baskets is going to be, all right, Kyrie, go cook. Go show off your greatest dribble in NBA history, get to the rack, or pull up jumpers, or do what you do. Everyone else will just get out your way. That'll be the way of creating easy buckets. All in all, because I value experience and the backcourt of the Dallas Mavericks feature an all-time great playoff performer and the person who hit either the first or second best shot in NBA Finals history, depends on how you feel about Ray Allen's shot against the Spurs. I have to go with the Dallas Mavericks. I'm saying Mavericks in 7. For the Boston Celtics, I'm saying Celtics in 6. I had 5 before game 1, but Celtics in 6. So I think our NBA Finals is going to be the Boston Celtics versus the Dallas Mavericks. And then I predict that series when we get there. Can't tell you how much I'm looking forward to the NBA Finals.